Hey, it's me. So, I'm sure you saw the title, so you know what this is about. There's just so many parts and pieces to it, so I'm going to start from the beginning. I moved to a new state, and after a year of being here, I hadn't really made too many friends. So, I downloaded this app. And I joined some local group and I started just going to events in the city, things locally. I met some girls that I started hanging out with and we hung out quite often. We actually met at a social anxiety event, which I know can kind of sound like a contradiction. And at the time for me, it was really confusing because I was feeling anxious in ways I hadn't felt before. And I didn't know that there was a term for it. So one of the friends I got close to, her name was Sarah. I was in my mid-20s and she was in her mid-40s, but we just really connected and I just felt like we got each other. She was retired, but she was like a creative. She liked making art. And at the same time, I was in school and I was working. So very different, but like I said, we just got along. So Sarah, she met this guy from the event app and they were at several of the same events and he ended up coming up to her and they formed this friendship. And I remember her telling me how they continue to attend some of the same events. He was also into art and he had this studio as well. So one day after an event, he invited Sarah to his studio. She didn't drink, but this guy, he did. And when she came by, they ended up painting. This is when things ended up taking a wrong turn. He didn't only have drinks at his studio, he also had guns at his studio. And he came on to Sarah. She was a bit shy and she generally told him no, but he didn't care. And she was afraid that if she stood up for herself, she didn't really know what would happen because he had a lot of guns in the room. He raped her. And after everything was over, she got up and went to the bathroom and tried to clean herself up. And unbeknownst to her at the time, when she was in the bathroom, he was putting spyware on her phone. And you know, Sarah, she was just confused, in disarray. I mean, who wouldn't be? You think that you just meet a nice person and you're both into art and you're excited to share art together and talk about painting and creative things, and it turns into completely something else. She was such a kind soul. So even after the events that happened, after the assault, she wanted to make sure that he made it home okay. Because he had been drinking and he had been smoking hookah. And even though she was not in any place where she thought she was going to be from that night, she couldn't help want to check up on another human being. So she texted him. And he let her know that he made it home from his studio fine. Days after this happened, I met up with Sarah and she told me. And I just felt hurt for her. I felt angry for her. All I could think about was the things that I already knew about her from her past, was how she grew up in a cult because her family was in a cult. And eventually she escaped it. How she had a mother who was not a good mother. And how her mother tried to poison her and she used to get sick until she realized what was happening. She was really just a sweet girl, but she had a hard life. So I remember the date specifically. It was Saturday, August 27th of 2016. I met with Sarah, and when she was telling me about these things, she ended up apologizing to me. And I was confused. And she was saying, she's so sorry. She put me on his radar. She didn't know he was like that. Because when she met with him the week before and they went hiking, he started asking weird questions about me. He started asking me, oh, is she cute? If you needed to borrow money, is she the type of person that you would ask? Would she lend you something if you were in need? And she felt like his questions were really weird, and she didn't really answer them directly because why would you even need to know these type of things? So she felt like even when he wasn't around, his presence was with her. She would be at the house by herself, but she felt his energy. When I met her this day, we were in a shopping center. We both left our phones in the car. We turned off our phones, we pulled the battery out, and we were probably there for about 6 hours. Some point midway through, we did go back to the car, we checked our phones, and mistakenly, we both ended up leaving our phones on battery in. Important thing to keep in mind, during that time frame, one person texted me, and this was someone that I used to date, but then I started dating again, and his name was Samuel. After checking our phones in the car, we continued to hang out at the shopping center. We walked around, we got food. I literally remember at one point sitting on this bench outside with her and her telling me the story, and she's crying and I'm crying with her because I just don't know what to do. I don't think anyone really knows what to do or say in those situations. And it was really sad because I could literally see her deteriorate right in front of my eyes, of her going from being this kind, caring person to being upset and angry and defensive and just feeling like she didn't know who she should trust. So she did figure out that he was on her phone, and she ended up getting a new phone. She got a new computer, and she was telling me how even though she kept getting new things, it's like he was still always there. She couldn't get rid of his energy. And the first thing I thought of, are you using Wi-Fi? I mean, because most people, that's your primary connection, right? He was on her Facebook. He mirrored her Facebook page. So when she logged into Facebook, she actually wasn't really logging in. She realized that he was watching her events on the app. And when you say that you're going to join an event, and if you're in the group, you can see all the other people who are also going to be at the event. So he actually was tracking her. He wanted to meet her. Him being at all of those same events with her, it wasn't a coincidence. He planned it. During the time before she knew all of this, she actually met some of his friends, and she wasn't really sure if they knew that he was a con artist. But what he told her was that he used to work for the NSA, and that, he ended up being there past the 10-year mark or around the 10-year mark. Now, if this was actually true or not, I don't really know. But what she believes is that he had done this to people before, and that he had this nice studio, an amazing loft, and that he got it because he was scamming off of others by hacking their phone. She also told me about how his mother was in on it. His mother played a part, and she felt like the mother wanted to look like her, to look like Sarah, that she was trying to kind of match her and look similar to her. She felt like her plan was to go into a bank and act like Sarah. His mother, she was in a church organization. She was acting very holy. And you probably kind of know what I mean when you meet those people and they're like, oh, praise God. Oh, thanks for this. Oh, this and that. But then really they're conniving. They're really just trying to get something out of you, and you can't see one shred of goodness in them. So when she met up with me and told me this, it was actually around the time of my birthday, because we stayed out in the shopping center talking for like 6 hours. Now I remember that night I was getting ready to go because I was going to like this R&B party. So this took place on a Saturday. But the next day, the 28th, I think this was the first day that he accessed my phone. So that Sunday night, I remember that I was trying to log into my internet provider, but it wasn't accepting my password. And I was logging in because there was like a streaming type of service that I watch shows on. I thought that, maybe it's late at night, maybe I'm just typing it wrong. So even though I felt like it was just weird and off, I just went ahead and reset my password. Then I went ahead and charged my phone that night before I went to sleep. I charged my phone up completely. It was over 90%, if not at like 99 before I went to bed, which was around midnight or so. When I woke up that next day, it was a Monday, and I thought it was weird because my alarm didn't wake me up. I woke up like after 9 o'clock. It was okay because I remember specifically I took like half a day at work. If I didn't take half a day, I would have been late. But since I took half a day, it was fine. It was just weird because my phone was dead. But I charged it right before I went to sleep that night. So I plug up my phone and I check my battery settings because I don't understand how it died. And when I look at my phone, it shows me that a media server connected to my phone while I was asleep, and it killed my battery. And this would continue to happen every Sunday night for months. So remember I told you about my friend Samuel, the only person that texted me the entire time that I was in the shopping center with Sarah. The following Friday, so basically 6 days later, he told me that he was going to get a coffee, he got paid on Friday, and his card got declined. And he thought it was so weird because he got paid on Fridays. He went to the bank and asked them, what's going on? I don't have any money in my account. And what he found out was that someone walked into the bank with a fake ID with his name on it and withdrew all the money in his account. Completely emptied it out. And he's not like a millionaire. It's not like he has $10,000 in the bank. He just got a check. I don't know exactly how much he got paid, but I know his checks were over $1,000 and whatever else he had in his account. And that was enough for this guy. So as soon as he told me this story, I freak out. I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly what this is. I tell Samuel I have to meet him in person and we need to talk. It cannot be over the phone. I meet him in person. I tell him everything that's going on with Sarah. I tell him how I feel like this guy was on Sarah's phone and then now he's on my phone and then he jumped on his phone and he's just kind of bouncing person to person. And I was just curious and I asked him, was there anything that you did differently in the last week that you usually don't do? And he was saying how he paid a bill on his phone. And he usually doesn't pay bills on his phone, but he was in a rush and he just needed to hurry up and pay it. So he did. Of course, none of this is by fault of his own. And if you remember, this was a hunch that Sarah had. this is exactly what she told me, what she felt like the mother was trying to do and look like her and go into the bank. And Sarah was saying how she started going into her bank, making transactions. Instead of going to the ATM, she went to the bank. She wanted to make sure that they recognized her face. So in the event that something did happen, they would say, you don't look like her. So Sarah, she knew more about this technology and cybersecurity and hacking stuff than I did. And at the time, there were a lot of weird things going on her phone. So she got kind of tired of everything, and she decided that she was going to delete her Facebook. She was going to delete her email. And her deleting her email was actually a pretty big thing for her, because she had a previous instance where a doctor tested a drug on her without her knowledge. And the result of that was she now had fibromyalgia. All of the evidence and all of the emails were in her email. So if she deleted her email, she no longer could pursue and try to sue this doctor. But with all the things that were happening and the hacking, she just wanted to be rid of it. She wasn't going to be on any type of social media. She was never going to have any type of online presence. She just wanted it all to go away. She was constantly changing her phone. She was always messaging or calling me from different numbers. And I missed a lot of her calls or messages because I didn't know it was her. And what she would do was she would be out somewhere and she would see a person and she would say, hey, can I use your phone? And then she would call me real quick, or she would text me real quick. And she was doing this because she felt like she couldn't use her own devices. She felt like her own devices weren't secure. She got tired of the harassment. So she decided to take him to court. And an important thing that I should mention is after the night of where the incident occurred, Sarah did go to the clinic. She did go to a center to report this. So she wanted to take him to court and get a restraining order and just kind of report the things that were happening. I told her that I would go there with her. I remember her saying how she didn't like the way that court was set up for these type of situations because it makes you face your accuser. You have to go in this room and sit right there with them staring at you while you basically tell all the horrible things that they've done or been doing to you. I got a text message from a random number. It was Sarah. She was saying, hey, sorry, I'm running a little late. Right now, I'm down here at this grocery store. If you want to meet me, I'll be here for the next however many minutes. Now, I'm driving around, so I'm not immediately checking my phone. When I see it, I'm like, okay. And I try to go there, and I wait. And I wait. And I wait. And I'm like, I think I missed her. She's not here. She's probably already gone. Well, let me see if I can find the courthouse. I don't know which one it is. She didn't tell me which one it was. We were going to meet and go there together. So I'm trying to find this courthouse. I'm driving all around. I don't know the courthouse. I don't know where it is. I couldn't find her. I don't really know what happened with the case. I don't really know what the result was. I never ended up finding Sarah. I actually never heard from her again. There were never any text messages. There were never any more phone calls from her. And she deleted all of her social media. She deleted her emails. She was constantly changing and texting from new numbers. I tried all the ways I could think of to reach her. I couldn't. Now, at this point, there are a lot of weird things that were happening on my phone. And it's an important note to make that I was actually in school for web development. So at the time, I was taking a computer security course. And from this course, I was learning a lot of things. I was learning a lot about security and hacking and how devices and systems worked. And I was using some of the things that I learned in school to try and better protect myself. Even the first time when I noticed that a media server connected to my phone, I literally factory reset my phone like 7 times. Like, I would erase it and wipe it again, erase it and wipe it again. I was trying so hard to just get away from it. So I remember in September, I was trying to get my phone to come on. I powered it off, and it was like, for the life of me, I could not get my phone to come back on. And at this time, like I said, I was learning some things. I had downloaded, different apps and firewalls and things like that. And I noticed a lot of weird applications and things running. And one that was always running that I didn't like was MTP Host. So I disabled that app from my firewall. Eventually, when I did get my phone to come back on, I noticed that was one of the applications that had been running. I could look under my battery settings, and I could see that a media server was connecting to my phone. And it connected twice, 2 days in a row, and it was usually after midnight. At this point, I also was working doing grocery delivery. And I remember when I was trying to deliver, the app couldn't find my location. And for you to do delivery, you have to have your location on. And it was weird because my phone, it could get on the internet, but it wasn't connected to my mobile network. And I eventually ended up making a phone call. And when I got a phone call, it was like my service connected. And I got like text messages that were in my inbox that I didn't know that were there. My location and connection finally came up. Even though I hadn't heard from Sarah, I got a lot of information about him from her previously. And she used to post about him on her Facebook when it was happening to her. She posted his name, she posted his photo, and I took screenshots of it. So I was on my computer and I was looking for these screenshots, but I couldn't find them. But what I ended up figuring out was that he planted a virus on my computer. Some of the services that I use, I learned from the computer security class that I was taking. And he planted, it was a heuristic backdoor virus. What that means is that this is a type of virus that can hide itself, and it's harder to detect because it's connected with something. This virus specifically was connected to my Wi-Fi. When all this stuff started happening, I switched over to Hardline. I was pretty much Ethernet all the way. I didn't notice this virus until one day I decided to turn on my Wi-Fi, and then the software caught it. I didn't know a lot, but what I believe he was doing is that he was using programs like Reaver or Kali Linux, and he was using a Meterpreter and doing these different types of things to access my network. I remember telling my ISP and telling my phone provider, but they really weren't a lot of help, because if I tell someone all this stuff that's happening, they're just going to think I'm crazy. They're just going to think that I'm making it up. It was really stressful at the time because it was like no one believed me. I'm not a millionaire, I'm not a celebrity, but what I do know is that crazy people are crazy. Have you ever saw a story of some guy who stalked some girl? You're not worried about what that girl's status or what her recognition was. It's obsession. We don't know why people do what they do. We don't know why they obsess and fixate themselves over things. but it doesn't deny us of our truth. I didn't need my internet provider, my phone provider, or anyone else to tell me that I was being hacked. It was clear. I knew it. Friends, my classmates, my family, they knew about this. They believed me because they know me. Why would I make it up? They went through it with me. When I was stressed out and some random weird thing happened, I told them. It got to the point where instead of me always studying for school and doing homework, I was obsessing about all the stuff happening to me, all of the hacking, all of the stuff on my phone. I was constantly on the internet looking at processes, researching, trying to see what were all these weird applications and things running in the background. I learned about software like Odin, and I learned how to flash the firmware on my own phone. But it doesn't really matter if I flash the firmware one week and then it happens again the next. I would see weird processes running like download managers and bridge service and all these things that are used to back up your files to a computer. I figured these things out because I would look in the developer tool setting on my phone. I would look and see what tasks were running in the background. I would run security programs that would show me all of these apps and things that were open that I didn't use. So I switched my methods. I only downloaded apps in safe mode. I went into my phone settings and I encrypted my entire phone. I found this app called Package Disabler where I could literally go and disable the packages on my phone. So packages are hidden things. They're things that you can't see. They're usually settings that you can adjust. If you get a phone and it has a whole bunch of bloatware and you can't disable or delete the apps, Package Disabler could. One of the things that I ended up noticing was running was something called AASA service. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew that it was always on. So I turned it off. And when I did, it was the weirdest feeling. It was like feeling an energy, a presence leaving the room. But I was in the room by myself. So I looked it up. What exactly is AASA? And I learned that it was mobile device support. It basically gave you remote control access and it could activate like all of your apps and settings, and it was commonly used by customer support. So if you called into your phone provider and you needed help on your phone, they could activate this feature and help you look and dig into your phone settings and things like that. Another thing that this service could also do was listen to your mic. So when I felt that weird presence when I turned off this service, it was because he had been listening to me. He had been watching me through my camera. So I looked up some of these other services that were running. I wanted to know what this com.qualcomm.embsm was. And it was basically the service that could mirror your device or your display to a screen or show on other devices. I tried to download programs that would allow me to access hidden menus in my phone and different settings to search further. But a lot of these apps I could just see in system settings. I would see things like the Shell app was running a lot, which can allow computer capabilities to your phone. I would see that this data manager was running, and that basically backs up your phone and it can sync your calendar, your contacts, your browsers, your pages, your keyboard data, your messages, your call logs, and all of your settings to make it easier for you if you want to restore your phone. There were things like Fuse Location that was always on, which was a file system in user space. And it basically would mount to this pseudo SD card and it would allow your computer to read or write things. Do I understand all of these applications? Do I understand everything that's going on and the meaning of them? No. But what I did understand is that they weren't on before. And now they were. My phone would get really hot and it would overheat. Another thing that happened a lot was Bluetooth. I actually never used Bluetooth at the time. I didn't use Bluetooth in my car. I didn't have a Bluetooth headset. I didn't have a Bluetooth speaker. I didn't have a Bluetooth anything. But once this stuff started happening, Bluetooth was always on. It was always running, and my phone was really hot and it was constantly overheating. Weird things would come on, like nearby services when I didn't use nearby services, NFC, Quick Connect, Android Beam, all of these service and programs that I have literally never used, and some of them I've never even heard of. My antivirus software on my phone would alert me of some of these things too. It would show, hey, Android Beam is on. This isn't a secure setting. Hey, your developer tools is activated. This isn't a secure setting. And developer tools on your phone isn't something that's just on. You have to go into settings and you have to scroll down and hit this settings 6-7 times for it to activate developer settings. And you can turn it on and off. When I would go in to look and check and see if these settings were on, at the time that the antivirus software notified me that these services were on, they were already off. I literally was creating new email accounts, changing my passwords. I was making 16-character passwords. It didn't help. I remember at one point he was logged into my phone for about 12 or 13 days. And when he logged into my phone, I could tell because it would zero out all of my apps. And I had to be really careful when he logged into my phone, because if he logged into my phone and it died, I couldn't turn it back on. The only way to turn it back on was to hold the specific set of startup keys, get it into the root menu, and do a factory reset from there. So I was constantly losing data. Sometimes I could flash the firmware from Odin and it might work, but other times it wouldn't. And when I say my phone wouldn't turn on, I mean I would literally try to turn my phone on and it would just sit on the startup screen. It could sit on that screen for a full hour. It would never come on. The only way to get it back was to factory reset it. It was like something about breaking his connection and my phone dying while he was actively on it. My phone couldn't figure out how to even come back on from it. It got to the point where it was really exhausting. I remember going to this festival and I wanted to record a video, and I would always turn my permissions off. So at this time, I had a package disabler, I had a firewall, I had a security service, I had so many things on my phone. For me to do something as simple as take a video or take a picture, I had to go through 3 or 4 settings to even enable myself access, because I was trying so hard to keep him out. And when I was at this festival, he was on my phone. All my apps were zeroed out, which means I didn't have access to any of my permissions. So I couldn't take a video. I couldn't do anything. He had more control over the phone I was holding in my hand than I did myself. It was at the point where weird things were happening almost daily. It went from the point of constantly having these mini heart attacks from seeing that someone's backing up your contacts and your photos and God knows what else, and seeing that they're accessing your phone and all these weird things. I started to feel sad. I started to get tired of constantly being watched and my privacy consistently being abused. I really started to fall into a depression. I didn't want to use my phone. I didn't want to download any apps. I got to the point where I felt kind of scared to even talk to people. I felt afraid to make new friends. I was so concerned with every little thing. Oh, don't say this, don't say that, don't say too much. If I'm having a bad day, I can't tell someone. I don't want him to know. I don't want him to know all of my emotions. And I really started to isolate myself. This went on for about a year and a half. There were small things that I did that would prevent him from accessing my phone for a short amount of time. I even got my first job in tech support, so I was constantly learning new things, but it didn't matter. He always found a way back in. It even got to the point where I was afraid to take job opportunities because I started working remote. I had the same phone number for 14 years, but I wanted to get away from this, so I got a new number. I got a new phone. It didn't stop. One day, I needed to use the internet on my computer. I can't remember exactly what was happening, but there was something going on with my internet service and it wasn't working, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to use hotspot. It was like basic browser stuff. It wasn't anything too serious, but I just remembered it was something that I had to do from a computer. So the day after that, I go to log into my bank and it made me do this insane verification. It's asking me to verify multiple methods. It's asking for my social security number. As soon as I seen it, I already knew it was him. And I just felt like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I just have to get away from this. So I deleted everything. Emails, social media, Amazon. I even closed my bank account. And then I moved. Even after, I was really paranoid. It was really hard for me to stop checking my phone, to stop looking at all the background processes. I felt like I was constantly on edge. But after a couple months, nothing happened. And I realized I was free. I moved on. I took another job working remotely, and I just started trying to rebuild my life and get back to a point where I was comfortable on my phone. It was a challenge, but I felt like, okay, it's finally behind me now. I can move on. I wish I could say it ended there. I wish I could say I never had to deal with it again, but it was only a matter of time. I think this is enough of the story for one session. I know this story got a bit long, so thanks for sticking in there with me. But part 2, how I continue to get insanely hacked. Coming soon. Thanks for watching.